The quantum sensors aboard the celestial monitoring station Gamma 9 weren't designed to detect impossibilities. Yet on this ordinary day in the galactic year 3457, that's exactly what they found. Commander Vexranai, a veteran of the Unified Space Command with distinctive purple-scaled skin and 4 crystalline eyes, stared at the readouts with growing disbelief. The anomaly had appeared at the edge of charted space, far from any established transit lanes. Its energy signature was unlike anything recorded in the station's vast database. "Analysis complete, Commander," announced Lieutenant Kira Chen, her dark eyes fixed on the holographic display. As one of the few humans serving on this remote outpost, she had earned her position through exceptional skill in quantum mechanics. The signature matches no known configuration, but there's something familiar about it. The massive object emerged from the darkness of space like a ghost from humanity's past. Nearly 15 kilometers long, its hull bore the unmistakable aesthetics of human engineering, but of a style not seen in 2 centuries. Elegant sweeping lines merged with brutally efficient angles, creating a silhouette that demanded attention. Along its sides, ancient markings gradually became visible. U.S. Prometheus. Kira's hands trembled as she accessed the historical archives. "Commander, this is impossible. The Prometheus was part of humanity's Golden Fleet. It disappeared with 12 other ships during the expansion era, 200 years ago. They were presumed lost with all hands." Vexra's crystalline eyes refracted light in complex patterns, a sign of intense concentration among her species. "Contact the Galactic Council immediately, and get me a direct channel to Earth's colonial administration." But before either order could be executed, the ancient vessel broadcast on all frequencies, using communications protocols so old they had to be translated through multiple generations of software. "This is Captain Sarah Martins of the U.S. Prometheus. By our chronology, we've been gone for 3 years. We carry 10,000 souls and technology that could change the course of human history. We also carry a warning. Request immediate contact with Earth Command." The message repeated in 15 different languages, including 3 that had gone extinct during the ship's absence. In the following hours, the station became the center of a political storm. Representatives from 30 different species converged on nearby systems. The current Earth government dispatched its fastest ships. The Galactic Council entered emergency session. Everyone wanted answers to the same questions. Where had the Prometheus been? What had they discovered? And most importantly, what warning did they carry? Aboard the Prometheus, Captain Martinez stood before a cryogenic revival chamber as its frost-covered surface slowly cleared. The face inside was peaceful, unaware that their 3-year mission had stretched into 2 centuries. Next to her, Dr. James Chen, their chief scientist and Kira's ancestor, checked the revival sequence parameters. "All readings nominal, Captain," he reported, his voice steady despite the circumstances. "Though I still can't quite believe what our sensors are telling us about the current date." Sarah touched the cold surface of the chamber. Inside lay her wife, Dr. Alexandra Torres, the brilliant physicist whose theories had made their mission possible. "We knew time dilation was a possibility, Alex," she whispered. "But I don't think any of us expected this." The ship's AI, Araya, manifested as a holographic matrix beside them. "Captain, I've completed my analysis of current galactic political structures. The changes are substantial. Humanity has joined a coalition of species, but we're far from the dominant force we were striving to become. The technology we carried, the innovations we made, none of it exists in this timeline." A subtle vibration ran through the ship's deck plates. The massive engines, still more advanced than anything in the current era, maintaining their stable orbit. Around them, 10,000 crew members and colonists slept in cryogenic suspension, waiting to wake up in a universe that had moved on without them. "What do we tell them?" James asked, gesturing to the sleepers. "How do we explain that everyone they knew is dead? That the Earth they left behind exists only in historical archives?" Sarah squared her shoulders, the weight of command settling familiarly despite the unprecedented situation. We tell them the truth, that while we were exploring the quantum anomaly, searching for a way to protect Earth from what we discovered, time had other plans. And now, she paused, looking out at the unfamiliar configuration of space stations and ships gathering around them. Now we have to find our place in this new universe, while making sure our warning doesn't come too late. Aria's holographic form flickered. Captain, I'm detecting multiple approaching vessels. Their weapons are powered down, but their scanning systems are active. They're trying to analyze our quantum shielding. Let them look, Sarah said, her voice firm. They won't understand what they're seeing. Not yet. First, we need to wake our key personnel. Then we need to contact whoever's in charge of Earth's defenses. She turned to James. Begin revival sequence for senior staff and critical science personnel, starting with Alex. As the cryogenic chamber hummed to life, Sarah thought about the impossible situation they faced. They had left Earth as pioneers, carrying humanity's most advanced technologies and brightest minds on a mission to secure humanity's future. Now they were relics, displaced in time, carrying knowledge that had been lost to the ages. But they also carried something else, something that had followed them through the quantum void, something that had caused them to sacrifice everything in an attempt to buy Earth time to prepare. And now, 200 years later, Sarah feared that time was running out. The revival sequence reached its final stage, and Alexandra's eyes began to move beneath their lids. Around them, the Prometheus maintained its vigil, a ghost ship from a forgotten age, carrying within its hulls both humanity's lost legacy and a warning of things to come. The Galactic Council chamber buzzed with tension as representatives from 30 spacefaring civilizations gathered for an emergency session. The massive crystalline dome above reflected the light of 3 suns, casting prismatic shadows across the assembled delegates. At the center of attention stood Alexandra Torres, recently revived chief physicist of the Prometheus, facing the scrutiny of beings her time had never encountered. The quantum void wasn't just a spatial anomaly, Alexandra explained, her hands moving through the holographic display she had constructed. It was a door, and we weren't the only ones who found it. The display showed complex mathematical equations that made even the hyper-intelligent Arxian delegates lean forward in their gravity chairs. In the observation gallery, Captain Martinez watched with Admiral Chen of the modern Earth fleet, Kira's commanding officer. The family resemblance to James was striking, though separated by 2 centuries of evolution. Your ship's technology, Admiral Chen began, it's beyond anything we've achieved, even with alien cooperation. How? Sarah's eyes never left her wife as she responded. Earth's golden age wasn't just about expansion. Admiral, we were racing against something. Something we found out there in the dark. Below, Alexandra continued her briefing. The void entities we encountered exist in quantum superposition. They don't just travel through space. They travel through probability itself. The Prometheus and her sister ships weren't just exploration vessels. We were humanity's insurance policy. The Maersk representative, a feline being with iridescent fur, growled something that the universal translators rendered as skepticism. If these entities are as dangerous as you claim, why haven't we detected them in 2 centuries? Because we succeeded. Alexandra's voice carried a weight that silenced the chamber. The Prometheus's final mission was to seal the quantum corridors they were using to approach Earth. We thought we'd be trapped for months, maybe years, not centuries. But the time dilation was. She paused, swallowing hard, unexpected. In orbit above, the Prometheus hung like a sword of Damocles. Teams of engineers from various species had been granted limited access, their reports causing waves of concern through their respective governments. The ship's quantum drive alone represented a technological leap that threatened to destabilize carefully maintained power balances. On the ship's observation deck, Dr. James Chen stood with his descendant, Kira. They watched as alien vessels circled their home, scanning, analyzing, trying to understand. The quantum seals, Kira said, breaking their contemplative silence. They're failing, aren't they? That's the real reason you've revealed everything so quickly. James nodded, his expression grim. 3 years for us, 200 for you. The math was solid, but nothing holds forever. We bought humanity time, but now. He gestured to a display showing microscopic fractures in the quantum barrier they'd created centuries ago. Back in the council chamber, Alexandra reached the crux of her presentation. The entities we encountered don't just consume matter. They consume probability itself. Every universe, every timeline where they've gained a foothold has simply ceased to be. We track their quantum wake through collapsed realities. The Galactic Council chamber buzzed with tension as representatives from 30 spacefaring civilizations gathered for an emergency session. The massive crystalline dome above reflected the light of 3 suns, casting prismatic shadows across the assembled delegates. At the center of attention stood Alexandra Torres, recently revived chief physicist of the Prometheus, facing the scrutiny of beings her time had never encountered. The quantum void wasn't just a spatial anomaly. Alexandra explained, her hands moving through the holographic display she had constructed. It was a door, and we weren't the only ones who found it. The display showed complex mathematical equations that made even the hyper-intelligent Arxian delegates lean forward in their gravity chairs. In the observation gallery, Captain Martinez watched with Admiral Chen of the modern Earth Fleet, Kira's commanding officer. The family resemblance to James was striking, though separated by 2 centuries of evolution. Your ship's technology, Admiral Chen began, it's beyond anything we've achieved, even with alien cooperation. How? Sarah's eyes never left her wife as she responded. Earth's golden age wasn't just about expansion, Admiral. We were racing against something we found out there in the dark. Below, Alexandra continued her briefing. The void entities we encountered exist in quantum superposition. They don't just travel through space, they travel through probability itself. The Prometheus and her sister ships weren't just exploration vessels. We were humanity's insurance policy. The Mursk representative, a feline being with iridescent fur, growled something that the universal translators rendered as skepticism. If these entities are as dangerous as you claim, why haven't we detected them in 2 centuries? Because we succeeded. Alexandra's voice carried a weight that silenced the chamber. The Prometheus's final mission was to seal the quantum corridors they were using to approach Earth. We thought we'd be trapped for months, maybe years, not centuries. But the time dilation was... She paused, swallowing hard. Unexpected. In orbit above, the Prometheus hung like a sword of Damocles. Teams of engineers from various species had been granted limited access, their reports causing waves of concern through their respective governments. The ship's quantum drive alone represented a technological leap that threatened to destabilize carefully maintained power balances. On the ship's observation deck, Dr. James Chen stood with his descendant, Kira. They watched as alien vessels circled their home, scanning, analyzing, trying to understand. The quantum seals, Kira said, breaking their contemplative silence. They're failing, aren't they? That's the real reason you've revealed everything so quickly. James nodded, his expression grim. 3 years for us, 200 for you. The math was solid, but nothing holds forever. We bought humanity time, but now. He gestured to a display showing microscopic fractures in the quantum barrier they'd created centuries ago. Back in the council chamber, Alexandra reached the crux of her presentation. The entities we encountered don't just consume matter. They consume probability itself. Every universe, every timeline where they've gained a foothold has simply ceased to be. We track their quantum wake through collapsed realities. The chamber erupted in overlapping translations as dozens of species tried to process the implications. Sarah watched as her wife stood firm, waiting for the chaos to subside. This was why they'd awakened the senior staff first. The truth couldn't wait. In the ship's quantum core, AI monitored the growing instabilities. The AI's calculations showed what Alexandra was about to reveal. They had weeks, maybe months, before the seals failed completely. The entities they'd sacrificed everything to stop would return, and this time, they'd be facing a galaxy that had forgotten how to fight them. The Prometheus carries more than warnings. Alexandra continued once order was restored. We carry the only weapons ever proven effective against quantum state beings. But our technology alone won't be enough. We need this coalition. We need every species here to contribute their unique understanding of the universe. Sarah felt Admiral Chen stiffen beside her as Alexandra pulled up the final display, a map of quantum fractures spreading like cracks in reality itself. The nearest breach point was uncomfortably close to populated space. 2 centuries ago, humanity stood alone against this threat. Alexandra's voice carried to every corner of the chamber. We sacrificed everything to buy time, hoping Earth would be ready when the seals finally failed. Instead, we find something perhaps even better, a united galaxy. Now we have to teach you everything we learned, and quickly. In the ship's cryogenic bay, more revival sequences initiated. Engineers, scientists, and soldiers from humanity's golden age began to wake, each carrying pieces of knowledge that had been lost to time. They were about to introduce technologies that would reshape the balance of power throughout known space. The Arxian Chief Counselor, its crystalline form refracting light in patterns of deep concern, raised the question everyone had been avoiding. If these entities consume probability itself, how can we be certain any defense will work? How can we fight an enemy that exists in all possible states simultaneously? Alexandra's smile was grim but determined. Because humanity already did it once. We didn't just seal them away. We proved they could be beaten. And this time, we have the combined knowledge of 30 spacefaring civilizations to work with. As if to punctuate her words, the quantum sensors throughout the chamber registered a microscopic expansion in the nearest fracture. Time was running out, but this time, humanity wasn't facing the void alone. The question was whether ancient human innovation combined with modern alien technology would be enough to save not just their universe, but all possible versions of it. On the Prometheus, Sarah and Admiral Chen watched as the first joint human-alien research teams began their work. The ship's halls, designed for a crew from Earth's golden age, now echoed with dozens of alien languages as the galaxy's finest minds gathered to face an enemy they were only beginning to understand. The race against probability itself had begun again, but this time, the stakes were even higher. The first breach appeared without warning. One moment, the mining colony on Proxima VI was conducting routine operations. The next, reality itself seemed to tear open. The quantum sensors installed by the Prometheus team registered the event 3 seconds before it happened. A paradox that only Alexandra Torres understood. It's starting, she announced to the assembled War Council, her voice steady despite the horror they were witnessing through the quantum feed. The tear in space-time pulsed with impossible colors, its edges flickering between states of existence and non-existence. They're testing the barriers, looking for weak points. The Proxima VI colony had been evacuated in time, thanks to the early warning system. But watching the quantum entities emerge from the breach sent shockwaves through the gathered alliance. Beings of pure probability shifted through multiple forms simultaneously, their very presence causing local reality to become unstable. Captain Martinez stood at the Prometheus's command center, now staffed by a mixed crew of displaced humans and alien specialists. ARIA. Status report on the quantum shield network. The AI's holographic form flickered with calculations. Shield coverage at 63% and expanding. The Arxian crystalline technology integrates well with our quantum matrices, but we're still vulnerable in the outer sectors. In the 3 weeks since the Prometheus's return, the galaxy had mobilized with unprecedented unity. The ship's advanced technology had been selectively shared, focusing on defensive systems that could be rapidly deployed. The MERS contributed their expertise in quantum computing, while the crystalline archons provided power generation technology that could sustain the massive energy requirements of the quantum shields. Deep in the Prometheus's research labs, James Chen worked alongside his descendant Kira and a team of multi-species scientists. Holographic displays showed the quantum breach expanding in fractal patterns. "The math is beautiful," Kira said, watching probability calculations spiral through dimensions. "Terrifying, but beautiful." James nodded, making adjustments to the quantum resonance chamber they were developing. "That's what makes them so dangerous. They don't just destroy, they rewrite the fundamental laws of reality. Each universe they consume makes them stronger, adds to their possible states of existence. Above them, through layers of hull plating and quantum shielding, another breach began to form. The entities were becoming bolder, testing the defenses humanity had helped install. Each incursion provided valuable data, but also brought unimaginable risk. Alexandra's voice came through the ship-wide comm. "All research teams, we have confirmation. The entities are evolving faster than our original encounters. They've learned from their previous containment." In the council chamber, now converted into a strategic command center, representatives from 30 species watched as new breach points appeared on the galactic map. The Arxian chief counselor's crystalline form resonated with concern. "The quantum shields cannot expand quickly enough. We need a new strategy." Sarah Martinez studied the tactical display, her mind racing through possibilities. The entities were following a pattern, but it was one that existed in quantum superposition, simultaneously random and deliberate. Then she saw it. "They're not just testing our defenses," she announced, stepping forward. "They're hurting us. Look at the breach patterns. They're pushing us away from specific sectors." Alexandra's eyes widened as she analyzed the data. "The quantum void. They're clearing a path to it. If they reopen that dimensional corridor, then nothing we've built will be enough." James finished, his voice grim. "They'll pour through in numbers we can't comprehend." But among the fear and tension, Kira Chen noticed something in the quantum readings, a pattern within patterns, a resonance that shouldn't exist. "The shields," she said, her voice growing excited. "They're not just blocking the entities, they're affecting them. Look at the probability waves." The observation deck of the Prometheus had become a hub of frantic activity. Alien scientists worked alongside the awakened humans, combining technologies and theories that had never existed in the same timeline. The quantum resonance chamber, originally designed to seal the void, was being modified with crystalline technology and Morse quantum processors. "We can't just defend," Alexandra announced, her hands moving through complex holographic models. "The entities exist in all possible states until observed. But our quantum shields, they're forcing them into single states of existence." Understanding rippled through the gathered scientists. Sarah felt a familiar surge of hope as she watched her wife work. This was humanity's gift to the galaxy, not just technology, but the ability to see impossible solutions. "We're not trying to stop them from entering our universe," Alexandra continued, excitement building in her voice. "We're going to force them to fully enter it. No more quantum superposition, no more probability manipulation. They want to hunt us across realities. Fine, let's make them play by our universe's rules." The Prometheus's engines hummed to life, its quantum core pulsing with power as it prepared to lead a fleet of mixed human and alien ships. They weren't running from the breaches anymore. They were going to hunt them. In the ship's quantum core, AI processed the calculations for what they were about to attempt. The AI's holographic form displayed the success probability, 0.1%. Below that number, in smaller text, "Better odds than humanity usually needs." Sarah took her place in the command chair, surrounded by a crew that represented the best of 2 ages and 30 species. "All ships, prepare for quantum jump. We're taking the fight to them." As the fleet moved into position, the entities continued to emerge from their breaches, unaware that their greatest advantage, their quantum nature, was about to become their greatest weakness. The hunt was on. Reality shuddered as the combined fleet dropped out of quantum space. The Prometheus led the formation, its ancient hull gleaming with newly integrated crystalline technology. Behind it, ships from 30 different species moved in perfect synchronization, each modified with quantum resonance technology that had been perfected just hours before. Multiple breaches detected, Araya announced, her holographic form highlighting tiers in spacetime that pulsed with impossible geometries. The entities are responding to our presence. Sarah Martinez watched as the tactical display filled with probability waves. Each quantum entity existed in hundreds of states simultaneously, making traditional targeting impossible. But that was exactly what they were counting on. All ships, execute pattern Omega, she commanded. Begin quantum resonance sequence. The fleet split into precise formations, creating a three-dimensional web of overlapping quantum fields. Alexandra Torres stood at the science station, her hands dancing through holographic controls as she coordinated the massive undertaking. The quantum resonance chamber is at full power, she reported. Crystalline matrices are stable. Maersk processors are handling the calculations. She paused, watching as the first entity approached their trap. Now we see if our theory holds. In the research lab, James and Kira Chen monitored the quantum field interactions. The entities moved like oil on water, sliding between states of existence. But as they entered the web of quantum fields, something changed. It's working. Kira breathed, watching the readings. The overlapping fields are forcing quantum collapse. They can't maintain multiple states. The entity caught in their trap writhed, its form solidifying as probability collapsed around it. For the first time, they could see what they were fighting. A being of crystallized time and space, beautiful and horrifying in its newfound singularity. But the victory was short-lived. Other entities, learning from their companion's fate, began to adapt. They merged, combining their probability states in ways that even the quantum fields couldn't fully collapse. They're evolving faster than we predicted. Alexandra's voice was tense. The quantum resonance isn't strong enough to handle multiple merged entities. The Arxian ship's crystalline hulls pulsed with energy as they attempted to strengthen the field. The Maersk vessels added their own unique quantum signatures to the mix. But it wasn't enough. The entities were learning, adapting, finding ways to exist between the collapsed states. Then Kira saw something in the quantum readings, a pattern she recognized from her years of studying temporal mechanics. The resonance chamber, she called out. It's not just collapsing their quantum states, it's creating a new one. Look at the probability waves. James studied the data, his eyes widening. She's right. We're not just forcing them into our reality. We're creating a new quantum state, one that exists purely in our universe's rules. Sarah turned to Alexandra. Can we use this? Force them to adapt to our reality instead of trying to force them out of it. Alexandra's fingers flew over the controls as she ran the calculations. Yes, yes. Instead of trying to collapse their quantum states, we can create a new one that's more stable. One they'll naturally want to inhabit. Like offering them a home, Sarah mused, but one that plays by our rules. The Prometheus's quantum core hummed as they reconfigured the resonance fields. Around them, the alien ships adjusted their own systems to match the new frequencies. The entities, still trying to breach their reality, found themselves drawn to the newly created quantum states. It's working, Araya confirmed. Entity quantum signatures are stabilizing. They're adapting to the new state configuration. But success came with a price. The power requirements for maintaining the new quantum states were enormous. Ship after ship reported systems reaching critical levels. We can't maintain this indefinitely, James warned. Even with the combined power of the fleet, we're looking at minutes at most. Sarah watched as more entities were drawn into their trap, their forms solidifying into something their universe could contain. We don't need indefinitely. We just need long enough to show them a better way to exist. The entities that had been caught in the quantum web began to change. Their crystalline forms took on new patterns, more ordered, more aligned with the natural laws of their universe. They weren't just being forced to change, they were choosing to adapt. Power levels critical, HFY announced. Quantum resonance chamber showing signs of imminent failure. But before the system could fail, something remarkable happened. The transformed entities began to emit their own quantum frequencies, reinforcing the very fields that had changed them. They weren't fighting anymore. They were helping to stabilize the barrier between realities. Alexandra stared at her readings in wonder. They're not just adapting. They're choosing this state. It's more efficient for them. More stable than existing across multiple probabilities. The combined fleet held position as more entities transformed, each one adding its power to the growing stability of their local spacetime. What had started as a desperate defense had become something else entirely, first contact with beings they never truly understood until now. But in the quantum void beyond their reality, something else stirred. The entities that hadn't been transformed were gathering, combining into something vast and terrible. The real test was still to come. All ships maintained positions, Sarah ordered, watching as the void itself seemed to darken. I have a feeling we're about to meet their leadership. The transformed entities moved to form a barrier between the fleet and the growing darkness. They had chosen their side in what was about to become the strangest battle the universe had ever seen, a fight for the very nature of reality itself. The quantum void churned with impossible colors as the entity cluster emerged. Unlike its transformed kin, this being existed in millions of states simultaneously, each one a reality it had consumed. The combined fleet's sensors struggled to process its true size. It existed both everywhere and nowhere, a paradox given form. By all the stars, Alexandra whispered, watching as probability itself warped around the entity. It's not just their leader, it's their origin point, the first of their kind. The transformed entities, now allied with the fleet, formed complex geometric patterns in space. They resonated with the quantum frequencies that had changed them, creating a barrier between realities. But even their combined power seemed insignificant compared to what they faced. All ships maintain quantum resonance, Sarah ordered, her voice steady despite the impossible odds. RIO, what are we looking at? The ACE calculations spawned fractal patterns across the holographic displays. The entity exists in a quantum state that encompasses approximately 47 million different probability waves. It's not just moving through realities, it's generating them. In the research lab, James and Kira worked frantically to adapt their quantum resonance technology. The readings from the massive entity showed patterns they'd never seen before. Look at this, Kira pointed to a cascading sequence of numbers. It's not random. These probability waves, they're speaking. James adjusted the quantum sensors, and suddenly the noise became clear. The entity was broadcasting in pure mathematics, each probability shift carrying meaning. Araya began translating. We are ENTROPV made KNCOs. We are the end of CAUSSALITY. Join US or be unanade. The transformed entities responded with their own quantum patterns, showing the stability they'd found in single-state existence. The massive entity's response came as reality distortions that threatened to tear the fleet apart. It's not just attacking us, Alexandra realized, watching the pattern shift. It's trying to prove its way of existence is superior. This isn't just a battle. It's a philosophical argument written in the language of quantum mechanics. Sarah looked at the tactical display, seeing not just ships and enemies, but a confrontation between two fundamentally different ways of existing. Then let's show it something new. Araya. Configure the quantum resonance chamber for total spectrum broadcast. The Prometheus's ancient engines pulsed with power as they initiated the most ambitious quantum experiment in history. Every ship in the fleet, linked through crystalline technology and Morse quantum processors, began broadcasting the complete history of their universe, not just data, but the very quantum signature of evolution, of life finding new ways to exist. The massive entity paused its assault, its probability waves shifting as it processed this new information. The transformed entities added their own experiences, showing how limitation had led to new forms of complexity. "It's working," Alexandra said, watching the readings. "It's actually considering the possibility that constraint can breed creativity." The void entity's response came in waves of quantum distortion. "Prove your reality as worthy of existence." Is worthy? Sarah stood from her command chair, facing the view screen that showed the swirling quantum chaos before them. "We're not asking for worthiness. We're offering partnership. Your kind exists in infinite states, seeing everything, being everything. But have you ever created anything new?" The entity's probability waves fluctuated, showing the first signs of uncertainty they'd seen. "That's humanity's gift to the universe," Sarah continued. "We understand limitation. We understand the power of working within constraints. Your infinite existence is magnificent, but it's static. Join us in the joy of creation through limitation." The transformed entities moved closer to the fleet, their quantum signatures harmonizing with the ship's broadcasts. They were living proof of what Sarah described: beings who had found new purpose in constraint. The massive entity's form began to shift, its probability waves aligning in new patterns. Araya's translation continued. "We have known INFI. We AVNEV or NONGROTH." Alexandra's hands flew across her console. "The quantum resonance chamber is ready. But this time, we're not forcing a transformation. We're offering a choice." The combined fleet maintained position as the vast entity considered what they offered: not conquest, not forced change, but the possibility of experiencing existence in a new way. Around them, reality itself seemed to hold its breath. Then, in a display that would be remembered for generations, the entity began to change. Not collapsing, not being forced, but choosing to explore limitation. Its infinite probability waves didn't vanish. They focused, channeled, became something new. As the transformation completed, the quantum void began to seal itself. The thread of reality consumption ended not with a battle, but with understanding. The entity that emerged existed in a single, impossibly complex state, a bridge between infinite probability and defined reality. "We choose to create." Years later, the Galactic Council chambers would include new members, crystalline beings that had once existed in infinite states, now choosing to explore the infinite possibilities within limitation. The Prometheus's mission, started centuries ago, had ended not by sealing away a threat, but by expanding the very definition of life and consciousness. Sarah and Alexandra stood on the Prometheus's observation deck, watching their transformed allies help construct new quantum technologies that would revolutionize space travel. "We went looking for a way to save humanity," Alexandra mused, "and ended up helping infinity itself find a new purpose." Sarah took her wife's hand, smiling as she watched human, alien, and transformed entity work together. "That's what humanity does best. We don't just survive, we help the universe discover new ways to live." Above them, the quantum barriers between realities had become bridges of communication and cooperation. The age of isolation was over. The age of creation had begun. The end.